American troops are sitting in bunkers right now, waiting to see if missiles start flying. And Donald Trump is clinking glasses with donors at Mar-a-Lago. Let that sink in. The Middle East is inching toward open war. Retaliation threats are escalating, and the commander-in-chief is choosing a political fundraiser over explaining to the American people why he is launching strikes against Iran without congressional authorization, without a defined objective, and without a plan for what happens next. This is not controlled power. This is panic wrapped in ego. And the cracks are already showing, because the people blowing the whistle aren't cable news pundits. They're combat veterans, Army Rangers, naval aviators, lawmakers who have actually flown missions over the region, who have carried friends home in flag-draped coffins. They are calling this exactly what it is, a reckless war of choice driven by magical thinking and elite bravado. Meanwhile, Trump, a 5-time draft dodger, is casually shrugging that casualties often happen in war. Just like that, as if working-class kids dying overseas are some unfortunate but acceptable cost of doing business. You cannot make this up. This is how disastrous wars begin, with chest pounding, with no endgame, with a cabal of insulated elites gambling with other people's children. This isn't strength, it's desperation unfolding in real time, and it's putting American lives on the line. Now let's talk about the lies, because the gaslighting is already underway. Donald Trump ran for office promising he would keep America out of endless wars. He mocked what he called stupid wars. He claimed he would focus on lowering costs for families, securing the border, rebuilding the economy. America first, remember? No more regime change, no more foreign entanglements. That was the sales pitch. And now, he is escalating military action against Iran with no congressional authorization and no clearly articulated objective. That's not America first. That's ego first. Let's look at what he actually said. He is now admitting that American casualties often happen in war and framing potential troop deaths as some kind of noble inevitability. Think about that shift. The same man who attacks others for wasting American lives is now preemptively rationalizing flag-draped coffins before the American people even know what the mission is. That's not leadership. That's conditioning the public for loss. Meanwhile, he cancels an address to the nation, an address where he was supposed to explain the stakes, and instead attends a political fundraiser for MAGA Inc. at Mar-a-Lago, while service members are sitting on bases in Bahrain, while Iranian officials are publicly threatening unprecedented retaliation, while tensions are escalating globally. We've seen this playbook before. Inflated intelligence claims, selective facts, imminent threats, urgency without transparency. The same script that marched this country into catastrophic conflicts in 2001 and 2002 is playing again. Except this time, it's being delivered by a 5-time draft dodger who never had to face incoming fire. And when actual combat veterans speak up, they're demanding a war powers vote. They're demanding Congress return to Washington immediately. They're saying the American people deserve accountability before troops are sent into harm's way. That's how the Constitution is supposed to work. But instead of engaging that constitutional responsibility, what are we getting from the MAGA side? Troll responses, chest thumping, make Persia great again, grotesque unseriousness in the face of life and death decisions. This is the contradiction laid bare. Trump campaigned as the anti-war outsider. He is now acting like every reckless insider who ever banged the war drums without a plan. And the veterans, the ones who know what war actually costs, are calling him out in real time. That's not partisan politics. That's receipts. Now let's go deeper, because this is where the facade completely collapses. I want to walk through what these veterans are actually saying, and why it should terrify anyone who remembers how disastrous wars begin. Let's start with Congressman Jason Crow, Army Ranger. 3 combat tours. This isn't theoretical for him. He is stating plainly that Trump is plunging us into another war in the Middle East, and that this is a war of choice, not necessity. No clear endgame, no authorization from Congress, limited public support. Stop right there. No endgame. That is the sentence that should send chills down your spine, because history is screaming at us right now. Afghanistan had no coherent endgame. Iraq had no coherent endgame. Trillions of dollars, thousands of American lives, generations of trauma, and now we are watching the same magical thinking resurface. Crow is also pointing out something that hits at the moral core of this. When elites in Washington bang the war drums, working class families pay the price. He fought alongside those kids. He knows their names. And then you have Congressman Pat Ryan, 2 combat tours in Iraq. He is reminding us why the War Powers Act even exists. It exists because of Vietnam. Because presidents cannot be allowed to drag the country into war without making the case publicly and obtaining congressional authorization. Ryan is saying Trump has not explained the goals. He has not explained the cost. He has not explained what happens after the first strike. Airstrikes may start wars. They rarely end them. That line alone dismantles the fantasy being sold to the public right now, that this will be quick, contained, and clean. That is magical thinking. Gross magical thinking. Now look at the response from the MAGA side. Instead of engaging the substance, instead of debating strategy, you have trolling. Make Persia great again. That's the level of seriousness from people backing military escalation. This is the cabal mentality. Chest-pounding bravado with no operational depth. And then there's Senator Mark Kelly, combat pilot, flew missions over the Middle East, shot at. Also an astronaut, someone who understands risk calculation at the highest level imaginable. He is saying we have seen this playbook before. Inflated claims, selective facts, talk of imminent threats. He is saying the question is not whether our military can execute the mission. Of course they can. The question is whether the mission makes us safer and what it will cost. That distinction is everything, because capability is not strategy. And then Senator Ruben Gallego, another combat veteran, is raising a blunt, devastating question. What happens next? I want to focus on that, because we are hearing justifications from the administration that U.S. intelligence suggested Iran might launch missiles preemptively or simultaneously. Therefore, the U.S. had to strike first to avoid greater casualties. Let's unpack that logic. If you strike first and they respond simultaneously, that's escalation. That's not prevention. That's initiating the sequence. Gallego is pointing out the circular reasoning. We might get hit if we wait, so we hit first, which guarantees retaliation. That is not defensive clarity. That is gambling with American lives. And while all this is unfolding, Trump is canceling a national address and attending a fundraiser. You cannot make this up. Veterans are saying they've buried friends because of we'll figure it out as we go logic. They've watched insurgencies grow after regime topple operations. They've seen what happens after the mission accomplished banners fade. This is not theoretical. This is lived experience speaking. And instead of sober planning, we're getting Lindsey Graham saying that if troops die, it will be a noble death. Think about how grotesque that framing is. Casualties framed as honorable inevitabilities before Congress has even debated the mission. This is the pattern. Reckless executive action, minimal transparency, emotional appeals, and then working class families absorb the loss. The deep dive reveals something chilling. The only people in this debate who sound grounded in reality are the ones who have actually seen combat, and they are furious. Now step back and look at the bigger pattern, because this is not an isolated decision. This is behavioral. Donald Trump is not carefully executing a coherent geopolitical doctrine. He is reacting. He is lurching. He is ranting and raving, making impulsive escalations while pretending it's 4D chess. It's not. It's chaos management through bluster. We've watched this before. He is constantly talking about strength, yet he is canceling a national address in the middle of a potential international crisis. He is prioritizing a political action committee fundraiser over transparency. That's not command presence. That's insecurity wrapped in ego. And let's talk about judgment. This is the same man who bankrupted casinos. Casinos. The house always wins, unless you are running them. Trump Steaks, Trump University. The list of failed ventures is long and humiliating. And now we are supposed to believe this is the steady hand guiding a volatile Middle East conflict? That's magical thinking. And while he is projecting toughness, the actual tough voices, the combat veterans, are warning that this smells exactly like the early 2000s. Inflated threat narratives, imminent danger, we can't wait. We heard those phrases before Iraq. We heard them before Afghanistan metastasized into a 20-year quagmire. History is not subtle about this. You topple a regime, and you don't control what fills the vacuum. You launch airstrikes, and you don't control how asymmetrical retaliation unfolds. You ignite proxy conflicts, and suddenly American service members are sitting in fortified bunkers wondering if they're about to be targeted. And while that uncertainty is hanging in the air, Trump is shrugging that casualties often happen. That sentence should haunt every parent in this country because it reveals the mindset. Casualties as abstraction, war as optics, sacrifice as political theater. Meanwhile, veterans like Jason Crow and Ruben Gallego are talking about burying friends. They are talking about working-class kids being sent to fight wars designed in elite conference rooms. That contrast is devastating. And let's not ignore the political reality. Trump ran on no more forever wars. He attacked others as warmongers. He promised to focus on Americans struggling with healthcare, groceries, housing. And now we are watching the machinery of escalation spin up while Congress is sidelined. That's not a minor contradiction. That's systemic hypocrisy. Polls have repeatedly shown Americans are exhausted by endless military entanglements. Special elections across the country have demonstrated voters rejecting extremism and chaos. And yet this escalation is unfolding as if public fatigue does not exist. This is what the end of political discipline looks like. Impulsive decisions, inconsistent messaging, reactionary bravado, no clear end game. This is not strength projecting outward. This is instability radiating outward. And the through line is unmistakable. A pattern of overconfidence, underplanning, and moral detachment from the human cost. This is not a one-off mistake. This is a flashing red warning sign that the guardrails are being ignored. Again, here's the bottom line. This is the difference between truth and delusion, between accountability and ego, between veterans who understand the cost of war and a draft-dodging elite who is gambling with other people's children. Combat veterans are speaking with clarity. They are demanding constitutional oversight. They are demanding a war powers vote. They are demanding answers before more American lives are put at risk. That is what responsible leadership looks like. What we are seeing instead is magical thinking, chest-pounding bravado, and a grotesque willingness to normalize casualties before the mission is even defined. We cannot allow reckless escalation to replace constitutional process. We cannot allow performative toughness to override democratic accountability. If you believe in protecting American lives and defending democracy, support independent media that is willing to call this out in real time. Hit subscribe, help us grow this channel, share this video, because informed citizens are the last line of defense against disastrous decisions made in panic.